So what will Jodi Arias' life be like after her trial? HLN's trial experts have a pretty good idea of what she'll be treated like as a potential death row inmate and the impact the jury really has on determining her fate.
If the jury unanimously decides that Jodi is guilty of the first-degree murder of Travis Alexander, they could then make her one of the few women on death row in Arizona.
If Jodi Arias makes it to death row, it'll be years before she's executed.
It is 12 years on average between the time that someone is convicted, sentenced, and executed in the state of Arizona.
Here's the thing, that date's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You know why? People on death row, they appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal as much as they can to stave off the death penalty. Nobody wants to die.
If you're sentenced to death, you get that automatic appeal. If Jodi Arias doesn't have money, which we know she doesn't, the state will pay for all of it, and every issue that came up during the trial will be scrutinized by attorneys and ultimately by judges. And Kirk Nurmi has a long checklist of issues that he's been making throughout the trial.
Sometimes I did feel like I did things that provoked him.
No further questions.
If Jodi is sentenced to death and she's on death row, her time outside of herself will be extremely limited. She can go outside for exercise 3 times a week, 2 hours each time, and she can have a shower 3 times a week.
Jodi can have visitation rights when she's there. It's closely monitored. She can have up to maybe 2 to 3 hours over a weekend, but that would be the limitation of her visitation.
Other than that, the rest of her time will likely be spent inside of her 12-foot by 7-foot cell.
Let's talk about the pressure the jury is under in determining Jodi's fate.
They will not only determine if someone is convicted of first-degree murder, but they will determine if someone is sentenced to death.
They are questioned about this in the beginning, and they are excused if they cannot decide between life and death. So every juror who will be deciding Arias' fate has already said they could impose death if it is warranted.
Imagine what that's like for a jury, to sit there in that jury room, especially if you were one of those jurors that felt it was kind of close on premeditation. But you went along with it because you said, okay, everybody else is doing it.
It's the most difficult judgment any human being ever has to make. And if they sentence someone to death, it's not them. They didn't make the decision to take another life. It was the defendant.
And deliberations in the Jodi Arias murder trial resume on Monday here on HLN, noon Eastern. You can head to HLNTV.com for all of the latest updates.